the reality of phantoms and monsters. They exist among us, and sometimes they win. Even the devil was an angel once. The world has its own rules, and these rules are not human. Some of us seek answers to the origin and existence of cryptids and the unexplained. Join us as we venture beyond the known and accepted boundaries. Welcome to our nightmare. I think you're going to like it.
Hey folks, good evening and welcome to Phantoms Monster Personal Reports, where I narrate and discuss some of the cryptid and unexplained sightings and encounters submitted to Phantoms of Monsters and Phantoms of Monsters Fortean Research. So thanks for joining me. This channel is made possible by you clicking the subscribe button and liking and sharing our programming. Super chat and super thanks donations are much appreciated. There's also a Buy Me a Coffee link there as well. So thanks for your consideration. Now, if you're in the chat and you have a question, please use all caps, but save posting the questions till I'm done with the presentation. I'll let you know when I'm on my the last account, and you can start putting it up there so I don't miss any of them, and I don't want to miss them. So tonight's going to be a little interesting. Of course, we're talking again about the Chicago Mothman phenomena. And this is kind of how things started spreading out beyond the city of Chicago and the suburbs. Beginning in early 2019, this phenomena was entering into a much wider scope. Indiana, from that many is always had a knack for providing a lot of interesting cryptid reports and other paranormal stuff. And but we're about to learn about the history of remarkable winged humanoid encounters that happen throughout the state as well. And I think there's a big connection here with what's been going on in Chicago. And it started a while back. I mean, this first account I'm going to talk about actually happened in 1969, and it involved a home entry and a child abduction. So let me get to it. I received a telephone call describing a harrowing account from the eyewitness, whose name was Floyd. The incident occurred on the night of October 27th, 1969 in Rolling Prairie, Indiana. Now, Lloyd was a young child at the time. And he states that he and his family, which was his mother, father, sister, and grandmother, were living in a trailer situated on the family's land. Now, this trailer had sustained some damage on the roof, leaving a large hole. Now, the hole was covered with a wide waterproof tarp until it was repaired. So Lloyd and his baby sister at the time shared a bedroom. Now, he was awakened by a strange noise and a strong disagreeable odor. As he looked towards his sister's crib, he saw a tall winged humanoid staring down at her. The being slowly turned and then looked at the horrified Floyd. The description was a very tall being that was crouched a bit. Lloyd estimates that it stood 7 to 8 foot in height. The body and face had black hair. The leather-like wings were huge and shaped like that of a bat or gargoyle. It had muscular detached arms and legs. The body, face, and face were thin and looked like a human skeleton with obvious sharp teeth. The eyes were dark. It also made a low, garbled sound. Now, Floyd screamed in order to alert his parents in the adjoining room, but they never responded. Now, his grandmother was alerted and came to his aid, though she was stunned at the sight and immediately fell to her knees. The creature picked up Floyd in his arms and made its way into the living room where it ascended through the hole in the ceiling. It's obvious it had moved the tarp in order to gain access into the trailer. Now, Floyd remembers being very cold and wet and hearing his grandmother screaming as the winged humanoid took off into the sky. He has no idea how long he was gone, but only remembers waking in his bed among his panicked parents and grandmother. Now, Floyd states that his grandmother witnessed the entire event and documented it. His living relatives concur that with the account, since his grandmother recalled what had happened and had told each of them. His grandmother passed away in 1985. Now, his parents woke after the abduction. It seemed that they were somehow placed in some type of hypnotic state until the winged being left the premises with Floyd. Now, after several minutes, they all heard scratching noises and a loud thud on the roof. Floyd's father immediately gained access to the roof where he saw Floyd lying unconscious. They were able to quickly bring Floyd into the trailer, dry him off, and place him in bed. They were reluctant to call the authorities or seek medical assistance because of the bizarre event. Now, Floyd recovered but had endured emotional problems his entire life, which he attributes to the abduction. Now, at the time of the Mothman Prophecies film release, he had a mental breakdown after watching it in the theater. And he and I had talked about this. He went into a lot of detail how it caused problems in his life. He literally had to leave the theater during the scene where the Mothman caused the automobile crash and death. And he has not attempted to watch the film since. Now, I asked Floyd why he called me. He stated that he had received a call from his cousin, who was aware of the winged humanoid sightings in Indiana. That's when he was given my contact information. Now, he allowed me to publish his name, full name, including the sketch, which I've posted on the show here. Seemed very forthright, quite a bit nervous. He seemed relieved that there had been other eyewitnesses to the similar winged being. So if you look at the image or the sketch that he drew, it's quite terrifying. I honestly, I don't think we've had any other sightings that closely resemble that at all. But for whatever reason, I believe there's a connection somehow. So it's another interesting side of this whole story, this whole long saga that we have gotten and talked about and discussed with people for since 2011. So this next account was about a large flying humanoid observed near Prairie Creek Reservoir in Indiana. Now, this reservoir, and we're going to talk about it a little bit down the line. There have been several sightings around this reservoir. It's east of Indianapolis near Muncie. So anyway, I received a telephone call from the eyewitness on Wednesday, January 23rd, 2019. TH and his wife were traveling southbound on a country road about a mile south of Prairie Creek Reservoir near Muncie, Indiana. The date was December 26, 2018 at dusk. A huge flying object caught TH's attention. Now, TH is a military veteran, hunter, trapper, and farmer who lives in the immediate area. His knowledge of military flying craft, wildlife, and his keen sense of observance was apparent when I talked to him. Now, the winged being that he was observing was unlike anything he'd ever seen before. The creature was flying just above the treetop level and was easily visible to the witnesses. And his reaction was to slam on his brakes in wonderment, exclaiming to his wife, "Do you see that?" His wife was shaken by the sudden stop and was unable to react fast enough to see the winged being. Now, TH stated that the being was humanoid in shape with an obvious face. The body had the length of approximately 6 to 7 feet with bat-like wings that were extremely wide. The being was dark colored and seemed to glide at a steady speed. He never noticed the flapping of wings while watching the creature. Now, his wife states that he had been truly affected by the incident and has constantly mentioned it to her in an attempt to explain what this winged being really was. He had refused to mention the incident outside of the family. Then he read about the recent sighting in Gary, Indiana. We did have some sightings in the metropolitan area, Gary, Indiana, which is in northwest Indiana, just across the border from Illinois. He had called his wife from his job and asked her to contact me right away. He later called me when he got home. This witness was very forthcoming and anxious to find out what this creature was. So then we later on, after I had posted this story with this last account, we got another witness that had an incident at Prairie Creek Reservoir. I received that email on Sunday, January 27th, 2019, in reference to my post of the other large flying humanoid that was seen at Prairie Creek. Now, the witness states, my husband was on Facebook and saw this article that you wrote and immediately showed it to me because I'm certain that this is the creature I saw 8 years ago in 2011 around the same time of year, which was winter, when I was on my way to work. The events unfolded as such. I was driving down Route 1, or Road 1, in between 400 and 500 South. Now, this location is in Randolph County, just 10 to 15 minutes east of Prairie Creek Reservoir. This is why the article caught my husband's attention from the beginning. Anyway, as I was driving, I saw what appeared to be a human crouched down on the road. As I got closer and the more I slowed down, it did move. So I was at a complete stop. This thing slowly turned its head to look my way, and it had greenish yellow-like eyes, like the color of that of a cat. It stared for maybe 3 seconds and then proceeded to slowly get up from its position like a human would stand up because it had legs. It turned towards the car. It stepped on my car and used it to take off. Then it lifted off like a glider towards the sky. I turned my head just in time to see it tuck its legs underneath its body, so it did appear as a bird in flight, kinda. Its wingspan was wider than anything I've ever seen on any animal in my life. I told my husband what had happened. He told me it had to have been a bird until he saw the article. Now, I've never said anything to anyone else in fear that I would be made out to be some type of idiot. I also would like to maintain my privacy, as I do not want public attention from this, as I have a young daughter and do not want her to be brought into this at all. I hope you maintain my privacy as well and keep my involvement just as a witness. So, a little bit later, I got another, I got a phone call. And this is about another Prairie Creek Reservoir sighting, but this was in 2007. So that witness stated, my mom sent me your article because I've always seen the humanoid at Prairie, because I had also seen the humanoid at Prairie Creek Reservoir. I am originally from Muncie, Indiana, and grew up spending a lot of time at Prairie Creek because my family had a boat there. It was the summer of 2017. When we had taken a boat ride and watched the sunset. It was dusk and the sun was setting as we approached our dock. As we got closer, my friend and I both saw what looked like a human standing at the end of our dock and thought it was strange because there was no one else around. Our neighboring boats were all docked and there were no other cars around, etc. We were the only ones out that evening from our dock area. It then turned around and we saw its glowing yellowish eyes. Now, at this point, we were freaked out wondering what this was because it was something totally off about it. It was clearly not a normal human. Then, as we got closer, it spread its wings, flapped a few times, and soared up into the sky. It was way too big to be a bird. I've never seen anything like it before or after. It was probably about 5 to 6 foot tall and really dark. And the whole body and wings were like a grayish black. Not sure if this is of interest, but my family and I also saw a UFO at Prairie Creek Reservoir around dusk as well a few years later. And we were one of the only boats on the water, and it was such a serene, quiet, and peaceful evening. Now, my mother looked up into the sky and saw the UFO as we all looked up. It was shaped like a tin can, stayed still, and made absolutely no noise. At that instant, my father caught a fish, and a commotion caused us all to look down for a few seconds, and later we looked back, it was gone. Now, I will note this witness is a local celebrity in the area around Muncie. She's a television news person, or was a television news person at the time. I don't know if she still is. And this is something interesting that has happened with a lot of these sightings. We've had several individuals who have had encounters who are pretty well known. We've had some professional player. We had a professional player who's seen a professional athlete see it. We had a couple news people who were well known in the area see it for whatever reason, or had seen it previous to becoming a celebrity. And there have been other people as well that are known around, have been known around the Chicago area. So I don't know what that really has to do with anything, but it is an interesting aspect of this. So then, not much after that last report, there was a bat-winged humanoid encounter near the Indianapolis International Airport. It was sent to me by the eyewitness, CJ. Now, she states that a friend of mine just sent me an article on sightings about the humanoid-type flying creature in Indiana. It had written in it about recent sighting of this thing. My girlfriend and I both witnessed the same creature about 6 years ago in summer 2012 while traveling I-465 north headed into the Indianapolis International Airport about 3 a.m. The creature, as we have been calling it, flew right in front of our windshield. It soared in between two buildings and came right out in front of the van. I drive a taxi van. I was on a cab fare. It turned its head and looked right at us with little red eyes. It then flapped its wings one time and flew to the left really fast. The wings were so beautiful. I'll never forget how amazing they were. It was a very bat-like being. You could almost see through the wings. You could see the veins bulging from all angles of the wings and the light that illuminated through them in the background. And I'll never forget the eyes. They were piercing and felt as if they looked right into my soul. It was definitely a very deep feeling. And you know, the funny thing was, even though this massive thing flew so close to the front of my van, I felt it, I was going to hit him. I never once put my brakes on. And I think back about that and why I didn't. You know, I just don't understand why I didn't react. I mean, I'm a taxi driver with a chauffeur license, trained to be safe and cautious, yet I never once slammed on the brakes or made an attempt to stop. Just thought I should contact you. I hope you hear back from you. I would like to know more about this thing. We wanted to tell someone about it other than our friends. Now, I did contact CJ and her companion for additional information. She and her companion were in the front seat. There were two farers, a soldier and his girlfriend in the back. She stated that the winged being had a thin 7-foot body, brownish in color. The bat-like wingspan was at least 12 foot in length or in width. And the red eyes had a distinct illumination and were very bright. Now, this next sighting that was reported to me came out of Hammond, Indiana. Now, this is not the only sighting we've had from Hammond. Hammond is a very near Gary. It's in the the northwest corner of Indiana. It's very rural, very urban area, a lot of roads, a lot of residential area. So I received a telephone call, first I received an email on August 12th, 2019. Then I got the phone call from a gentleman by the name of Mark Hagan, who is of South Shore Ghostbusters. He wanted to report a sighting of a large winged humanoid in Hammond, Indiana area, which occurred on August of 2018. Now, he stated it was August 2018. My wife and I were driving south on Calumet Avenue, and we're coming up to the red light at 131st Street when we heard what sounded like leather rustling. We looked to the retention pond to our left and saw glowing red, what I was going to assume were our eyes, and saw a large bat-like creature taking to the skies. It was dark color and easily had to be about 6 foot or more in height. From what I can make out, the wingspan was close to 10 foot or more. Now, about a week or so later, driving with my colleague in the South Shore Ghostbusters team, this time we saw it atop the same creature atop the Klein Avenue overpass, like it was eating something. We turned around only to see it take off to the skies once more. Now, we have been investigating the area and found this particular creature sticks close to water. Now, we have heard multiple accounts of seeing red glowing lights over the water of Lost Marsh since June or so this year. And I received several sightings at Lost Marsh as well. Lost Marsh, it's a wetland area, but there's also a golf course, a pretty large golf course around there as well. And I had 2 other sightings of individuals who had told me about these red eyes. So I'm pretty sure it's probably the same being or something very similar. So Hagen told me he's very familiar with the large fowl in the area, and that this being was definitely not one of the indigenous birds known to inhabit the area around Lake Michigan. So, like I said before, we've had several unconfirmed reports from various locations in Northwest Indiana, especially in the Hammonds and Gary urban areas, as well as the Indiana shoreline along Lake Michigan. There's a dunes area, and I think the name of the area is the Indiana Dunes or something, but it's right along the shoreline. And we've had sightings in that area as well. So, folks, if you've got any questions about these sightings, go ahead and post them, and I'll try to get to your question. No questions? Yeah, I will say the fact that, we have had a lot of sightings in Indiana, also in Wisconsin. So, this winged humanoid phenomena has just not had been, concentrated only in the Chicago area. We've also had a few over in Michigan across the lake. So, yeah, it is somewhat spread out. Like I said, we've been taking reports with a radius of about 250 miles from downtown Chicago. So, and at this point right now, we're about 160 sightings. So we do have one question here. Visitor Autumn. Any repeat sighting cryptid stalkers? I don't know. Cryptid stalkers, I don't exactly know what you mean by that. If you're asking if we've had repeat sightings of these things in the, around the area, yeah. And I think many of these things have been seen. uh, multiple times. You know, when this phenomena first started out, I estimated we were probably seeing 3 different individuals, but I'm quite sure it's been much more than that at any time. So, Karen Peterson, has anyone described the feet of the winged humanoids? You know, we did get a print in South Chicago off the pavement. It was a wet print that had, you know, the feet must have been wet on this thing, and it looked almost like that of a large turkey. Now we've had people, you know, with the 3 splayed, you know, toes on the, you know, like a turkey has or like a chicken has. But anyway, I don't know if that's what it was. We have had some people tell us that the feet are somewhat small, very thin. We had some prints in snow up in Woodstock, Illinois, that were about 16 inches in length, but very thin, almost like it had 2 toes. So, but other than that, that's all we've received. Sir Wolf, have you ever communicated with anyone? Had they ever communicated with anyone? Yeah, we talked about this before. We've had some cursory communication, mind speak, psychic communications, but that hasn't happened for a while. We had some incident come up that we're actually stopped at for about a month. We really haven't learned a whole lot. The only thing that we have learned from what we could gather from what they were stating to some of the team members is that they're from a linear dimension as opposed to our Earth plane. And they're not the only creatures that reside on that dimension. Now, other than that, that's about all we have gotten from them. Now, do I think we're probably going to get any more communication? Hopefully. It would be great that we would, but to this point, that's all we've had, and that's been about a year and a half ago. Jose Sanchez, what average wingspans are estimated between all these flyers? I'd say the average goes from 15 to 12 to 15 foot in width. You know, for the size of these things, even though they're emaciated and they're about 6 to 7 foot in height in the average, the 12 to 15 foot doesn't really seem like much of a width, but the way these things are seen flying, like gliding and propelling without using the wings in many occasions, there are definitely some supernatural aspects to these creatures. So, you know, since they had stated to us or inferred that they are from another dimension, they're apparently able to move between dimensions without losing form. You know, the people we have talked to state that they are definitely some type of flesh and blood being. So, who knows? AJ, hey Lon, what do you find more common, red-eyed cryptids or yellow-eyed cryptids? Well, with the winged humanoids, most of them are red-eyed. With Bigfoot or cryptid canines, it's either a yellowish or a goldish color. Now, sometimes they are red, but very, very rarely. It's usually the golden yellow eyes. Just a terratum. Anyone seeing one more than once? Sorry for the confusion. You call me dizzy. We haven't had multiple witnesses other than Hagen, where the last account I read, where he saw it later on down the road. I don't think we've had multiple witnesses. So, and you know, but I do believe, and I do have a theory, and I think some of the other folks in the team have this as well, that these creatures show themselves to certain individuals, and I think they have the ability to do that. Now, would that lend to someone seeing it more than once? Sure, but I'm quite sure we're not getting all the sighting reports either. There may have been people who have had multiple sightings and just aren't saying anything about it. Brian McLeod, Lon, have you interviewed the Chicago fireman at O'Hare Airport who reportedly saw the being? Manuel did. He talked to him. I haven't talked to any of them, but Manuel stated he did. Now, Manuel and Tobias are going to be on here on the 24th. That's Wednesday, and we're going to do a discussion on here a couple of weeks before we all travel I travel to Chicago. They're all from the area, but and we're going to be doing some filming for Unsolved Mysteries about this phenomenon. So yeah, we're going to talk about that. But if you have a question for Manuel then and ask him, yeah, he did talk to some of the witnesses, but no, personally, I had talked to them. Bernadette, has any other city ever had this many sighting encounters documented? Well, not like this. Nothing near to this. There have been cities who have had a lot of sightings of UFOs but as far as cryptids, I can't really think of any. This whole Chicagoland phenomena is very unusual. Let alone it's in an urban area. That's just something you don't really think about when you think of cryptid. You think of something out in the wilderness or something out in the woods or somewhere else. Though some of these sightings have been outside the city. But, the fact that we're getting sightings we had sightings downtown Chicago in residential areas of Chicago and such. Now, I can't think of any other instance where something like this has been going on for this long, has been documented this much. So yeah, it is an enigma. What's more, AJ, what's more common, red or yellow-eyed cryptids? I don't know. I'd say the yellow-eyed cryptids. Disteratum, any particle accelerators near the sighting hotspots, any connection theory? Well, the Fermi Labs is out in Cook County. Is that Cook County? I don't know, but it's outside of Chicago. They've been there. In fact, the Fermi Lab particle accelerator is the oldest in the world. It's been there for about 45 to 50 years. Now, it was shut down at one period of time for what they call an accident. That was about 8 or 9 years ago. About the time when we started getting these sightings in 2011 and beyond. So is there a connection? We've looked into that. We don't know if there is a connection, but you would think maybe it did have some responsibility for opening a portal or something like that. There's a lot of theories about particle accelerators and, what they may cause. I don't know if it has anything to do with it or not, but it is an interesting fact. But they have been working with it. They did, that Fermi accelerator did restart about 2 or 3 years ago. So, what are they doing now with it? I have no idea. Marla Snyder. Do you think that all the light towers, etc., at the airport are an attraction for these cryptids? It could be. I haven't really received any indication that there is a connection. I don't know. That's the first time anybody's asked me that. I really don't know. AJ, whether they are interdimensional or not, do you think these cryptids have families? Well, they're breeding somehow, apparently. So I don't know if they, the only thing we did to learn from them, it's a matriarchic arc. I can't even say it, but females kind of run the show. So that's all we know. Brian McGlade, thanks, Lon. I live in Chicago. Know a lot of fire and policemen. Oh, okay. Well, that's why you asked. Okay. Yeah, I haven't talked to them, but yeah, it's but he will, Manuel will be on here and he'll tell us about it. But I did record the interview on the website when I put the report up. So whatever they did state is on there. And I'll be coming up with that later. I will be talking about some of the airport stuff later on down the road. Probably starting the next show, because the next presentation, because we started getting the airport sightings in late 2019. And since that time, I'd say 80% of the sightings have been in and around the airport area. Jose Sanchez, has there been a particular season that they have been more or less observed? No. We thought early on that when we start that first winter, when some of the sightings started waning off, we thought maybe there was something to do with the cold weather, but no. We've had a lot of cold weather sightings as well. So I don't think the weather has much to do with it at all. Sir Wolf, is there any overall message or meaning within their communications? The only thing that we got or made out from what I was told by the people who communicated with them was that they do mistrust humans, and they are not very fond of male humans. Now, I can understand the mistrust. I guess they've been around for a long, long time and have had issues and run-ins with humans. So now why they're showing up now, I have no idea. They're not telling us that. They didn't tell us that. And at this point, we're not communicating at all with them. Hopefully we will again, but we'll just have to wait and see. Bobby Farron, why do you think there's such a concentration of winged cryptids in Chicago? I wish I knew that. I really do. But there's definitely a reason why. Now, I think because Chicago may actually be, let's put it this way. I think Chicago has a lot of advantages and is conducive for portal activity. And the reason I say that is, particularly after we started getting the sightings in and around the airport, I think there are areas at the airport where there are portals. Now, Chicago has always had a very rich paranormal history. Could this have something to do with that paranormal history, UFOs, and other sightings and such, and encounters people have had over the years? Possibly. But I think Chicago is very conducive to that type of activity. Mike Whipkey, could the advancement of wireless networks be possible cause of the rise in sightings? I thought about that at one point. I don't know if it does or not. I haven't found any reason to believe that's the case. But when you're talking about, the overall use of 4G, 5G, and continued use and the concentration, maybe it has some type of relationship. But at this point, we just don't really know. Okay, well, folks, I want to thank you for coming on here and asking your question and participating. If you made a donation, it's truly appreciated. We got a real nice donation from Peace, and we appreciate her her contribution, as always. Now, if you've had a sighting or encounter report that you'd like to be considered for personal report show or for the website, you can forward it to my email at lonstrickler@phantomsmonsters.com. So until we meet again, stay healthy, stay safe. Good night.